So, good morning, guys. Welcome to Thursday's training on how to thrive beyond codependency, discovering your happiness, your well being, discovering you beyond that codependent identity and those habits that tend to get you enmeshed with other people. Yeah, so, there we go. If you're new to me, I'm Marshall Burtcher, and I help codependents rediscover their happiness after narcissistic relationships, love addiction, trauma bonding, trauma. I teach you how to have healthy relationships. I teach you how to love yourself and how to know yourself and how to heal. That's clients within 4 to 6 weeks tend to see results really fast, and within 12 months they've reshaped their life and they're finding themselves feeling more happy, more abundant, and more at peace with themselves and with life. Alright, so before we jump into today's exciting topic, which is really cool, confusing breadcrumbs for meals, the power of neglect, I need to share this out to the community. Community is your safe haven from narcissistic abuse, from the chaos and confusion that you've been living through. It's a place where you can find understanding, where people are going to believe your experience, where they're going to understand it because they too are going through it or have been through it. You're going to find support and guidance. You're going to find inspiration that you too can actually heal and be happy again. Because I know on my own journey, I didn't believe that for a very, very long time. And then when it started to happen for me, I realized, we aren't stuck in this. We can break free. We can heal. So I'm going to get that shared out to the community here. If you want to join, you're welcome to. The link is above on Facebook, below on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. And thank you guys for supporting me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing my material with people you feel would benefit from it. Thank you for having my back and for believing in me and what I do, and putting to test what I teach, so you can find out for yourself how it works for you or how it doesn't. Because that's the point, right? Don't take it on my word. Go out and do it. Find out for yourself how things work for you. So let me know in the comments here how you're doing, what's going on for you. All the smoke in the air has just really aggravated my sinuses. Okay, so confusing breadcrumbs for meals, the power of neglect. So the last 2 weeks I've been talking about trauma a fair bit because the enrollment for Get Closure Now is open. We have six seats left. We start on Sunday at 2 p.m. Mountain Daylight Savings Time. Make sure you join. If the price is out of reach, just PM me, let me know, because there are other options I can get you into the course for. And the whole goal with Get Closure Now is to help you achieve closure on a trauma and help you regulate your nervous system, bring safety or restore safety back to feeling and back to your life. So those are the 4 things that you will exit that course having experienced, having understood, and being able to implement into your life. So, yeah, there we go. Confusing breadcrumbs for meals, the power of neglect. And so, neglect is abuse. Okay? But it's the abuse of things that should have happened that didn't, right? So, neglect is what you needed that you didn't know you needed. It's what ought to have been put into your world that never was. And neglect is kind of a real challenge because since we don't know what we ought to have had, we don't know what we're missing. We don't understand the hole that's in us. We don't understand the emptiness that is in us because of the neglect. Instead, we're wrestling with sometimes just this numbness. And neglect tends to result in numbness, tends to result in gaps emotionally and mentally and developmentally where we don't understand what's going on. We don't understand what's happening. And when it comes to love, this is extremely prolific. It's a very prominent aspect of what love is, or what our experience of love is, rather. Because in neglect, love is put into this very narrow spectrum of transactionalism where we earn love. Love is something that we earn by doing the thing they want us to do, by pleasing them, by getting them to feel good, and then thus they love us. And this teaches us this really important little equation that comes with codependency, and that is, I'm only lovable when I'm loved, and if I'm not loved, I'm not lovable. And that's the signal of transactional love operating in the background, and it's a direct result of neglect. Because love is an attentiveness to another human being. It's a mindfulness about them and who they are. It's a connection to warmth and proximity emotionally and physically with them. It's a place of support and of play. Love functions in conflict towards understanding. So if we're in a fight, love motivates us to move towards understanding rather than right and wrong. Because we're not looking for security, we're looking for connection, right? Real healthy love is an encapsulation and embrace of self and other as we are. Because it's not seeking something. It is looking to connect and understand and contribute. And that creates a reciprocal cycle between you and those whom you have love with. Neglect doesn't give us these things. These are the things that we've lived without, that we didn't know we were living without. These are the things that, frankly, if we'd had, you wouldn't be watching this video. See? And when we grow up in this kind of vacuum, this neglect, this desert of love, when someone gives us attention, when someone gives us a little approval, when someone gives us a little affection or a little play, a little inclusion in their world, it's huge to us. It's enormous. Because a breadcrumb feels like a feast when you've been starving. So we don't understand that we just got a breadcrumb. We think we got a feast because we don't understand what the feast actually looks like. We don't know what it's like to be full and to be nourished and to be well kept in that space. We just know what famine is. We know what starvation is. We know what that hollowness is within us. We're very comfortable there because of the neglect. And so when a person comes along, especially a narcissistic, abusive, toxic kind of individual, and they give us a breadcrumb, or they start love bombing us or putting us through the seduction phase of the sad cycle, this is overwhelming. This floods us with huge amounts of chemical in our brain. We get flooded with oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, adrenaline, and cortisol. It's what I call fear-love combination. This gets us into a euphoria because we're suddenly being fed. And we don't realize that what we're being given isn't a feast. They're just breadcrumbs. We're being deluged by them. And frankly, it makes total sense why we don't see it, because we have nothing else to go off of, right? That's the thing with neglect, is it's a vacuum of experience. We don't know any different. There's nothing else to contrast it with. So we're screwed that way. There's a real challenge there for us. So we take breadcrumbs and we take the euphoria they create and we confuse that with real love because we don't have any other measure. It's the same thing we felt when our parents were neglecting us and they gave us a little attention. So we're like, they love me right now. The fear comes in because we know that this will probably end. Because we think that love also includes abuse. It also includes fear. It also includes abandonment, discard. It doesn't. But we don't know that yet. So this is one of the harder challenges of exiting codependency, exiting trauma, especially attachment trauma, and dealing with the trauma bond or love addiction that tends to coincide with codependency. How do we discover real love? How do we know this is real love? How do we understand that this is reality and not some fantasy we're living in? And one of the hallmarks here is an opposite. It's not what you would expect it to be, because a lot of times we think, okay, love needs to be very powerful, very intense, very euphoric. And it's not true. Healthy love tends to be a little more boring. And the reason why is because it's stable, it's predictable, it's reliable. See, the unhealthy love, the chaos cycle that comes with abuse and with people who, not even just with abusive people, but if you're dealing with someone who's emotionally unavailable, like they're a dismissive or fearful avoidant and they're not really emotionally available and they keep pulling away when you pull closer, this creates a chaos cycle between you two. This feels like love. Oh, okay, yeah, we're having love. I mean, we see it in the movies all the time that this is what love is, which is not true. We're expecting chaos because we're expecting the adrenaline of being pulled into and then rejected and pulled into and rejected. So we go through this thing called intermittent reinforcement, the seesaw of being loved and discarded over and over. And when we come to real love, they're stable, they're predictable, they're reliable, which means they're consistent. And that doesn't have that kind of intensity with it. That doesn't carry this kind of chaotic fear plus euphoria plus despair cycle that goes on over and over in chaotic, unhealthy systems. And this is confusing because we're not sure if we love them. Because we're expecting this euphoria when in reality there's a very soft, subtle, secure connection being formed that feels safe, it feels sheltering, it feels kind, it feels expansive, it feels nourishing. But we have to give this time. And that's just the other rub in exiting codependency into healthy relationships. Healthy relationships take time. Yep, there are definitely the one-offs out there where they met and 2 weeks later they're married and they've had a fantastic marriage for their entire life. Great. Don't buy into the fantasy that that's going to be your experience. That's extremely, extremely rare. In other words, it's the abnormality to the normal, and it is not the gauge in which you should predict a relationship or hope for on relationship. Healthy relationships are grown, they're developed, they're discovered perpetually, not just in the dating phase, but in the commitment phase. You're always discovering yourself and them as you move through life, because life shapes you and you shape yourself in response to life. So you're both changing whether or not you are doing it deliberately or not deliberately. There's still an evolution going on. And it's important to acknowledge that so that you can reshape the relationship to the changes and understand your individual needs and the needs of others in the relationships you have. So they're organic, they're alive, they're breathing, they're real. So this helps us start to connect with the idea of what real love is. How does it show up? Well, it shows up with reliability. It shows up with kindness. It shows up with a direct, clear, and simple communication. It's honest. It's straightforward. And it has baggage. Okay, we all have it. We all have the baggage. But it's what we do with the baggage that really matters. So in toxic love, baggage becomes a weapon. Like, oh, you're stupid, or you did this thing. That you get hammered for it, or you hammer them for it, or there's some sort of weaponization of baggage. In healthy love, baggage is understood as a place for care and for love and understanding, as well as accountability. So my baggage gets in my relationship. I'm like, whoop, I'm doing it. I got to own that. I got to work that out. Her baggage gets in the relationship. Oh, it's got to, and she does. She owns it and she works it out. We talk about it. Because we're not looking to be right and wrong. We're looking to understand each other and to maintain our connection. That's the point, isn't it? Isn't that what we're all going for anyway, whether we're coming from a codependent approach or from a healthy approach? Is to feel connected, to feel seen, to feel understood. There you go. It doesn't have to be dramatic. In fact, life is so much easier without it, because there is rest, and then where there is rest, play and creativity can emerge. It's my opinion that relationships are not about working out one's trauma. I really don't buy into that concept. I think it's quite toxic. I think it's very narrow. And I think it's harmful to the intention of relationship. I think working out one's baggage is a byproduct of being in a relationship because it just gets activated and you got to face it and deal with it. But that's not the purpose of the relationship. In my opinion, the couple defines their purpose, number one. And I have found in my own life, for me, relationship isn't about healing, it's about play. It's about 4 specific areas that I teach in the relationship strategy. One's called companionship. So how well do we work together physically? Do we like each other? Do we like the way each other looks? Do we like the way what was it like in our physical environments, our lifestyle? The things that we prefer to do, the things we prefer to have or enjoy. What's different? What's the same? How does that work together? How does it not? And then you have intimacy. This is your emotional, sexual, physical, spiritual, mental, intellectual intimacy. How do we really click and feel connected, feel seen? How we reciprocate with each other. This is where your love languages come involved. This is where personalities mesh and contrast. This is where trust is built. This is how we manage conflict, because conflict is a function of intimacy in my point of view, because you can't have safe conflict, or you can't have safe intimacy and vulnerability without safe conflict. Because if you're not secure enough to disagree or to have a complaint or to say no or to confront a problem, you don't have intimacy. Because intimacy is all about the safety to be vulnerable, be seen, and be understood. And then you have what's called support. Support's where we're holding water with them, we're sitting on the edge of their pit, or we're with them, we're present with them, we're empathizing with them. We're not rescuing them, we're not enabling them. We're giving them the space to figure out their issues, but we're not withdrawing from them or abandoning them. We're accompanying them on their path and support, and they're doing the same for us. That we have each other's back. And then we have play. Play is where the relationship really takes on its color. It takes on its magic. And play can be mundane things like safe teasing, rituals you do that you enjoy, dating or dates that you go on, habits or that you share with each other, then big adventures you want to do, things you want to experience together. Play. And play is both individual and obviously mutuals. So you're out playing with your friends, and you come home and you tell your partner, I did this, blah, blah, blah. Things like that. These 4 areas really build connection, and they allow it to function. They allow it to grow organically so that you have an experience with the other person. That's so much more fulfilling than the chaos cycle of being seduced, abused, and discarded over and over and over and over. Because you never get anywhere in life with the sad cycle. Ever. Because you're just trapped in that drama. Your brain can't even grow. But in healthy love, your brain can grow, you can grow. Life thrives. Right? So in exiting codependency and exiting neglect, we have to become aware of that we're eating breadcrumbs when there's an entire meal on the table. But we have got to change how we respond to breadcrumbs and realize that breadcrumbs are a signal that we're dealing with a toxic person or we're dealing with a deficient relationship. Okay? Toxic or deficient relationships. It's easier to look at the relationship just than the person, right? We got to realize that. We also have to realize that we don't know what abundance feels like, and it's going to take time to grow into that. Because we have capacity, have this thing called emotional capacity. And when we're neglected, our capacities are like little buckets. Capacity is like a bucket, and when you're neglected, your capacity is a little bucket. When you're nourished and you're nurtured, your bucket grows. We got to learn to grow our bucket for real love, which means growing our bucket for security in attachment that isn't controlled. That's a biggie for most people. It means growing in connection and being seen without trying to influence the way they see you or control them in some way. And it's also about building capacity for trust so that they can see you and you can see them. And you can build healthy, positive, warm regard in the relationship so that when conflict happens or mistakes happen, it's responded to with love, with consideration, with generosity. And it's not seen as an instant vilification. Oh, you're trying to do this to me. Because we've either worked out or we're working on our trauma. We are orienting towards the positive intent to the individual based on their patterns of behavior that we know them to have because they're doing them. So guys, a breadcrumb is going to create euphoria, but a healthy meal is going to create satisfaction. It's going to create rest. It's going to create peace. Breadcrumbs are going to aggravate. They're going to paralyze. They're going to, they'll create the euphoria, and then they're going to put you into that distress and despair cycle because you know they're not reliable. So be mindful about the love you're receiving. And you can know if you're getting a breadcrumb versus a meal based on the consistency of how that person shows up for you. Because real love is consistent, reliable, a little bit boring. But you feel safe, you feel secure, and you feel free to be you. Whereas with unhealthy love or with breadcrumbs, it's chaotic, it's unstable. You feel a lot of confusion about them and about yourself. You're wondering what the hell is going on. That's the wrestle. That's the signal. If abuse is involved, it's unhealthy love. Period. Now, I want to reinforce this because abuse happens because someone feels entitled to displace their pain onto you. Healthy people are people working out their shit, because healthy people are always working out their shit. Do not do that, because they realize and they respect and they honor your emotional well-being just as they honor their emotional well-being. Abuse is a zero-sum game. It's a non-negotiable. It's a non-tolerable. Abuse is happening. Exit the relationship. Especially if you call it out and they don't correct it, you are guaranteed to receive a lot more of it. So be very, very, very mindful of that. Okay, guys? Appreciate you. Enrollment closes on Saturday for Get Closure Now, so make sure you reach out for that. Go to the link above on Facebook, below on YouTube, and sign up. I look forward to seeing you in there. And have a great day. Remember that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. And I'll see you guys in our next training video.